So welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris and I'm a gorilla in the wrist. Today we're looking at this offering from WM Watches, brand formerly known as Welly Merck, and asking the question, what's in a name? Let's get into it. So I'm going to start by running through the basic specifications for this one. So it has a 35mm dial width, has a lug-to-lug of 48mm, it has an awkward lug width of 19mm, and because of that VH31 that it houses comes in at a relatively thin 10mm, weighs 120 grams, has 100 meters of water resistance and a flat sapphire crystal. So today we're looking at this WM207 watch. It's currently available for about £27 in the spring sale, which is pretty good. Full disclosure, I guess, so this watch has been provided for free. I don't have to send it back. However, my reviews are always unaffected by whether I've purchased the watch out of my own pocket or whether it's been given to me. And as you'll see as we get out of this, I don't hold anything back. So a little bit of a story. So I was approached by a brand called Welly Merck about a year ago asking me if I'd be interested in partnering and possibly reviewing watches. And at that stage I kind of read the name and thought, I can't in all good faith agree to review a watch by a brand with a name that I'm in all probability going to ridicule in the video. That would have just seemed cruel and perverse. So I said to them that I wished them well, but I thought the name was a bit strange, and for those reasons I was going to pass. And subsequent to that, of course, they've changed the brand to WM Watches. Not a huge change, but I think what an important one. So I think we have a now a usable name for this particular brand. So the basic dimensions for this one are, well, a claimed 36mm. I have to say I've measured it every which way that I can find, and I can't find any measurement of it that is any more than 35, but that's just me. Again, a claimed 44mm lug-to-lug. One of the things this watch does have is quite significant male end links there, which do protrude quite a long way, to be absolutely honest. And so again, I can't get to 44mm lug-to-lug. I think it's slightly bigger than that. The lug width is 19mm. You want to believe we'll be talking about that in a little bit. But also because it houses that VH31 movement, what you have is quite a nice sort of slim profile. It does, however, have a sapphire crystal. It does have a screw down case back. Doesn't have a screw down crown on it, so it's just a free flowing crown. Does have a claimed 100 meters of water resistance. I can't really comment on that. I haven't got any way of testing it. However, I have worn it in the shower a couple of times and there's been no problems with it at all. So that's probably all fine. We have a relatively light sort of single link. It's pretending to be a 3-link oyster, but it isn't. It's a single link. Does have a nice ladder clasp on it, and the ladder clasp is nicely branded with safety pushers, and plenty of micro adjust. So I think in terms of keeping it clamped to your wrist, that's probably not going to be an issue. But this one is really all about the dial, isn't it? So it does come in a number of other colours. I'm going to put all those up there, just so that you can see the other colours. I chose this because I really like the deep blue nature of it. But it's not just the deep blue colour, it's the texture. And it's hard to get because the light is bouncing off the sapphire crystal. Let's see if we can get this. It's got a really nice, it's like looking at the sea. It does have that sort of wave look to it, and it's done really well. The dial itself is fairly simple, so we've got minute track all the way around the outside. We have very high polished battens, so again, when they catch the light, they do sparkle. But battens all the way around. This is a no date watch, so there's no date on there. The hands are fairly simple fence post hands. They do have Small amount of lume. Again, we will come back to that because I'm not sure whether it's actually required on this sort of watch. But we have the WM logo above the crown and Quartz 10 ATM below the crown. It's got a nice needle second hand, and the hands are also very high polish. But with that VH31 movement, you get a really good sweep, so it's quite impressive, I find. In terms of the finishing actually is pretty good. So it has a very high polished bezel. We then have high polished sides, a little bit of chamfered. There's brushing on the top of the case, and the rest, the bracelet is all brushed with high polish on the edges. The crown, as we said, is not screwed down, however it's branded, something that many other watches at this price aren't, and it has a really nice flat sapphire crystal. I've been really impressed, and I just particularly like that finish on the dial. I think that's really good. But that's the watch. Let's get into the gripes and groans. So my first gripe about this watch is really just about the size of it. So as I mentioned earlier, it has a claim 36, but it's not. It's 35 in reality. Certainly this one is. And I think on my 8.5 inch wrists, I'm not sure it quite works. So I'm not. The size doesn't work for me. However, for somebody with medium or small wrists, not the gargantuan wrists that I've got, I would imagine that it works fine actually. The other thing I'm not a big fan of is those big male end links, because they do make the watch quite long. The lug to lug on it, which is claimed at 44, isn't it? It's close to 47, 48. Now again, that might be one of the ways that it's actually more wearable, because I have been wearing it all week, and it doesn't disappear on the wrist. It's just a slightly noticeable smaller watch. But the other challenge I've had with this is that I just think I'm not convinced the proportions are right. So on a 35, even if it was a 36mm dial, I would expect the bracelet to be 18mm. And on something that's 35 and 19, those numbers just don't hang. There's too much thickness in the bracelet for me, which is a disappointment. The third thing, which I'm not a huge fan of, is the lume. I'm not going to be too critical about that, because to be honest, I don't think it needed lume at all. It's a dress watch, dress stroke sports watch, and it is quite visible at night because of those high polished markers and the hands. So I don't think it needed lume. I mean, kudos to them for trying, but actually I think they would have been better not bothering. So you'll see the video. You've seen the video. It's not great. But that's it really. Those are the only things I've really got against this watch. In terms of the things that I really like, I mean, it's got one big one, hasn't it? Very clearly. That dial is fantastic. I mean, real depth. The colour is amazing. It constantly, there's something really interesting about that colour and that texture, is that depending on how the light is catching it, it goes from being a very dark, very sort of luxurious blue to actually being quite a sort of soft. Other times it's very dark. So it's really changeable. I mean, really changeable. But it's a looker. Hard to disagree. This is not a looker. This is a fantastic looking watch. Okay, let's wrap this one up. So I started out by asking the question, what's in a name? And I think there is a sort of story behind the evolution of this watch and the name changing to WM watches. And is it important? Well, it was to me. I didn't really want to get involved with the name that it previously had, because it would have been unfair for the reasons I mentioned earlier. But clearly names are important. Brand names are important, and branding is important as well. But this has more than just a name. This has a really pretty face too. This is a sumptuous dial. I'm very, very impressed. You can see the colour change. It really is kind of joyful. I wish it was 3mm bigger, so it would sit naturally on my wrist a little bit easier. But it's hard to argue with the value you get for the money you pay. So I think for me this is a winner. I'm just going to point to the corner. So exciting, coming very soon to a screen near you. My first Amiga arrived this week. I am beside myself with excitement, as I'm sure you can hear in my voice. It's a beautiful thing, and I'm really looking forward to showing it to you. That's it for today. It's a Saturday. It's the first Saturday this year. It's nice and sunny, so I'm going to try and get out in the garden and make the most of it. Lots more content to come, including the Speedmaster review that's going to come up in the next week or so. So please join us for that. If you enjoyed the video, if you like this watch, if you think the brand's a bit silly, then just let me have your thoughts. Other than that, look forward to seeing you back very, very soon. Have a fantastic weekend. Take care. Bye bye.